Good afternoon and welcome to this week's edition of Entrepreneurship Matters. My name is Alicia Wilson. I'm Vice President for Economic Development for Johns Hopkins University and Johns Hopkins Health System. And it is my pleasure to introduce you to two of the spiciest or two of the women who have the best sauce in our country. Let me get us all set up for this conversation with Nyana as well as Tiera Chen. And you're going to see why I am able to say that. We know that successful entrepreneurs, successful businesses are not built in a day. It takes a long-term commitment, multiple failures, and a lot of grit to make it happen. And the two entrepreneurs that we're featuring today are no different. Let me bring on the screen Tiera Chen, Nyana Quashie. And I'm going to give you their bios, but not do justice to them. And that's why we're going to have such a rich conversation today. Two leaders in the spice and the sauce world. So let me give you their bios and they're going to come on screen and we'll launch right into the conversation. First, Tiera Chen of Yorktown Spice. She's the founder of Yorktown Spice, a specialty food company launched in 2021 with its debut product. All of us love this. Crab sauce. Created from a family recipe, crab sauce was originally crafted as a dipping sauce for Maryland blue crabs and has since grown into a fan favorite to be enjoyed with a variety of foods. Tiera has 12 years of professional experience working as a leader in healthcare and in education. One of her proudest career accomplishments is working as a sixth grade teacher for Teach for America in Baltimore. Tiera holds a bachelor's degree in business management and Spanish from the Hampton University and an MBA from Harvard Business School. She lives in Baltimore with a husband and two young daughters. Welcome, Tiera. So glad to have you on Entrepreneurship Matters. As a crab lover, so glad to get to talk about crab sauce. So this is a joy and a treat for me.
Thank you, Alicia. Thank you for the introduction. I'm so excited to be here today.
Yes. No, our pleasure. And next, I want to introduce Nyana Quashie of Camella's Kitchen. She is the co-founder of Camella's Kitchen. Founded with her mom, Karen, they are making it easy for you to experience bold Caribbean flavors at home and on the go. Camella's Kitchen specializes in handcrafted gourmet hot sauces, spices, rum cakes, and more, all made in small batches. They are committed to sourcing high-quality ingredients and work with small Black-owned farms in the Washington, D.C. metro area to do that. Their products are great for everyday use and also make a great, perfect gift or treat. She also has a blog for recipe ideas. I did look on the blog, so I'll be using some of those. And other tips for using their flavor. You can find them online. I'll give you both of their .coms and all their ads so you can purchase from them during the show. But Camella's is camellaskitchen.com, and she's on Instagram at Camella's Kitchen. Welcome, Nyana, to Entrepreneurship Matters. So glad to have you today.
Yeah, so glad to be here.
Excellent. So we're going to launch right into conversation, and we're going to start with what inspired you to want to be entrepreneurs. Tiera, I'm going to start with you. Clearly a family recipe. You could have kept it in the family. Didn't have to share it with the world. Clearly all of your education, you could be anywhere, going anywhere. And thankfully you're using that brilliance to bring us crab sauce. So tell us about what inspired you to want to be an entrepreneur.
So, I've always had like this desire to be an entrepreneur. I've always had this entrepreneurial spirit since back when I was a child in summer camp. I used to make those bracelets and I used to sell them and I had receipts and everything. All the kids were playing around and I was sitting down and had my table set up, just doing my little, side business at summer camp. So I've always kind of had that in me. It's always been just a thrill to me, the idea that I could basically create a product or service that people would want to buy and then hopefully, make a living off of that. So that's just always been appealing to me. But in terms of crab sauce, different relatives in the family have their own variety. And we used to joke, we should bottle this, but of us knew how to actually do that. We used to joke about it. And then later in life, my mother-in-law actually said to me, you should bottle this. And, at that point I was older and I thought, you know what, I really could use a creative outlet. So I call it my passion project. And that's kind of what has inspired me to take it to the next level.
I love it. I love the encouragement of like, the product was good, the sauce is good. And then, you've always had that spirit. Nyana, how about you?
Yeah, so I think similar to Tiera's story, it really started with a lot of encouragement. So I founded this business with my mom, Karen, and we really did it as a way to honor the memory of my grandmother, Miss Kamala. But also, she really gave us our love of food and really taught us a lot about like what we know about food. So over the years, we've had friends and family just comment on how good our food looked, how good it tasted. So we just wanted to find a simple way to bring the Caribbean flavors that we are used to other people in the community. And so that's how we really got started with our business and started with some essential staples that we use in our cooking.
No, I love it. I love how both of you, your work is rooted so much in your families and so much in like that story of like passing these recipes, passing the spices down. Beautiful. And so as you think about, okay, you have an idea, you have a product, clearly people like it, but how do you turn that into a business? And so, Tiera, I'll start with you. How did you go from idea, this is something greatly I can contribute, to really starting a concrete business that you have started and is growing today?
So I started off by finding a business mentor, someone who is familiar in the food space. And I actually kind of found two of them. I actually found one, which is a great tip for anyone listening, through the organization called SCORE. They offer free business mentorship. So I found a SCORE mentor who is familiar with the food space. And at the same time, I also looked for like food incubators, because for whatever reason, the idea of getting my sauce into a bottle just seemed like the biggest obstacle. Like I just had no idea how I was going to do that. So I found the business mentor and the business incubator at the Greenmount Culinary Institute, and I was able to work with someone who kind of helped me think through the steps of how do I just create a sample batch, see if I like the process and want to move forward with it.
I love it. I love it. I took some notes on what you said. So did you have to take us through a little bit more? Did you have to label? Like you have a nice bottle,
Yeah.
pretty label. You have a website. I've seen all that. So what other things did you go through?
So from
drop
that
all
point,
the gems. Drop all the gems. Everybody's
got
taking
it.
notes. I'm taking notes too.
I got it. So from that point, they were kind of like helping me think through, these are the steps. These are some resources that you need to consider. So the first thing I did was list all of the things that I needed to do to just create my first sample batch to see what my product would look like. So with that, I chose the bottles. I just didn't realize like I could go online as an individual and look for suppliers. That in of itself might seem basic, but that was kind of a learning for me. So my bottles, my caps, my liners, I was able to go online and find suppliers for that. They're out there if you're looking for them. And so once I picked my bottle shape, I had to match which top aligns with it, which liner fits the bottle, and I had to get that part right. I'm like, okay, great, I have a bottle. What do I want it to look like? So then I actually used Fiverr, Fiverr. It's a website that connects people around the world to do a variety of tasks. I use them for graphic design. And so I was able to find a designer on Fiverr, and I had literally sketched on a piece of paper kind of what my vision was. And I sent it to this designer who was across the world, and he helped. We went through several iterations of getting through what it looked like. And of course, at the same time, I had to look at sort of from an FDA perspective, what needed to actually go on the bottle. So at the same time, I'm thinking through what legally do I need to have on the bottle? And then from an aesthetic perspective, what do I want it to look like? So I designed a front label and a back label and the nutrition label as well. There are a lot of a reputable companies out there. Recipal is one of them that will help you to create a legitimate food label once you put in what ingredients are in your in your dish or sauce. And so I was able to use that to create a nutrition label, and we kind of just put it all together. I make my sauce in a commercial kitchen. I kind of priced out where I could get the supplies at the best price. And I mixed my sauce. I found the right machine that I needed to fill the bottle. That was the other thing. Okay, I have my sauce. Now, how do I actually fill the bottles? The kitchen I used had a filler, but they had a variety of options. I also purchased one for my own use that I can use. And so then I just went through the process, filled the bottle. And I just remember looking at it like, oh my gosh, like my sauce is in a bottle. And even that in of itself just felt like a huge accomplishment to me. Because just having a tangible product and kind of seeing what I knew like was a dream just like start to come to life. That was the beginning for me. And those were the steps I took to kind of then launch and refine the process to get to where I am today. Now I'm able to make larger batches and my process isn't so clunky, and it goes a lot quicker.
I love it. I love it. So I knew you had all these gems. You gave like so many gems for people. I took 8 down. One, you found a business mentor in the industry you're in, which is in the food space. So you dropped the gem of SCORE, also the food incubator of Remount Avenue. Then you did a small sample batch. Third, you list all the things that you would need in terms of supplies. Fourth, you source those supplies. So you got your suppliers, assembled bottles, camps. I wouldn't even think of like liners. Fifth, you use Fiverr to do your graphics. Sixth, great gem, looked at the FDA, got legally what you needed. 7, really use Recipal for the nutrition. And then 8, priced it all out and continued to do process innovation. 8 great tips for those watching. How about you, Nyana? How did you go from sauces, you compliments on all the great food you and your mom make, to starting your business?
Sure. So for us, just getting started, it definitely was a process where, both my mom and I, since we are a partnership, like we talked it through, like the vision for what we wanted the business to be, and then figured out how to make it happen. So it took a lot of research upfront. Like Tiera mentioned, like there are a lot of different requirements that you need to be able to meet, especially when you're in the food industry. So for us, like we are home-based. So, we looked up the requirements for running that type of operation and made sure that when we labeled our products and everything, it met those requirements. So really, it was a lot of work. Pretty similarly, like looking at the bottles, looking at the caps, figuring out all of that. There are a lot of different suppliers out there. I will say we actually started the year before COVID happened. And
oh, wow.
And so in finding bottles, it was pretty easy. However, during the pandemic, there was some supply chain problems that came up. So that required having to even look at other suppliers or even changing our bottles at times. However, we adapted based on the situation. But for us, it really was just doing a lot of research, reading a lot of business books as well. That was really good resources, making sure we had a good business plan in place as well, just so we knew how to function, and just taking it from there. As far as a business book, that was like really helpful for us. The Lean Startup is one that was really good in kind of
say the name of it again.
The Lean Startup.
The Lean Startup. Okay. All right.
Yeah. So that was a really good one in terms of like how to actually manage a business operation. So that was really helpful. And so from there, we just kind of went forward and we made connections. That was really helpful in our local area. So we do a lot of work with local farmers. And so like for me personally, like I've kind of always been supporting local farmers. So it was very easy to tap into my current network that I already had. And so I was able to, work with them and connect with other farmers. And also as far as like promoting our products. One thing that I did for the design, I used Canva to design labels. So that was a very helpful resource. And in doing social media and doing a lot of different promotions, just using that. But I also connected with a lot of local influencers as well to help promote our product and get the word out there. But we've been up and running ever since.
Excellent, excellent. I took down 8. Both of you have 8 tips. One, you had the vision for the business. You and your mom took the time to really do that. 2, couple that with research. So research about the industry you're about to enter into. 3rd, I think this is really smart, realizing the difference between being home-based and being in a and what were the requirements that you needed to meet in order to do that. 4th, bottles and caps. I never even thought of bottles and caps. Maybe it's just I've never had a food business, so that's why I don't know. But this is great because I would not think about sourcing that. 5th, reading the business book. You gave the great book called The Lean Startup. 6th, you made those connections. I love how you talked about the local farmers and being a part of supply chain, which we've heard from so many entrepreneurs that come on here. Canva, love Canva. So able to utilize that to design. And then 8, using influencers. Excellent tips. Let me let everyone know. I already see people on Facebook and in Zoom putting your questions in. Those of you who are listening on the phone, you can participate as well. Type 22333 JHUWL in the message. I'll get all those questions and I will incorporate them into the conversation. Let me go to this question, which came up on Facebook, which both of you talked about, is this concept of mentorship. And what have been your experiences with mentorship? Tiera, I know you talked about SCORE and having someone within the food incubator industry. Nyana, you suggest that you had mentors and you learned from others. How, the question is whether it was hard finding a mentor, whether you become a mentor. What have been your experiences? What advice would you have for others who just heard you and are thinking, I really need a mentor? Tiera, any tips?
I would definitely say, definitely get a good feel for your mentor and try to understand what they actually can offer you and can't offer you. You want to find, because as someone as the mentee, you're receiving this information and you want to be able to distinguish from what are opinions and ideas versus what are like some tried and true strategies that others have had. And just with any person you talk to, there's advice and then there's, tried and true. So I would just say, try to find someone who has achieved or who has been really close to a project that has achieved what you are looking to do. And if they haven't, that's fine. Just know that. And then just try to understand, well, what nuggets do I really think I can take from this person that will be useful? And it might not be everything. And ultimately, it's up to you to decide what advice or guidance you decide to move forward with.
No, great tip. Like tried and true. Make the distinction between whether they've lived it or if this is advice. Great point in looking for. How about you, Nyana? What's been your experience?
Yeah, so my experience in mentorship, I will say initially when I started, I did do a lot of research and did a lot of books. However, SCORE is a really great organization. I know when I just started out, they had a conference. And so I was able to attend that. And actually, there were a lot of different SCORE mentors in the area. So just touch base that way. As far as like me and my personal mentorship experience, I will say that there are a lot of different mentorship programs out there. At first, it might seem really hard finding a mentor, but SCORE is a really great resource. So you can reach out and you can be connected that way, as far as other programs that you can also try. Because like I'm working in the food industry, I was able to hop on to one that is very food specific. So the James Beard Foundation, they actually have a mentorship program called, I think, Open for Good. And so I was able to get connected with a mentor in the food space that way. So she actually works in PR, but she represents a lot of different food businesses. And so through that, I was actually able to develop a relationship and connect with her. And she's been really good at giving me advice on just how to promote my business, and has just really come in handy. And it's been really great because like as far as like us doing promotion and reaching out, we have been able to been featured in quite a number of places. And so just working with my mentor has been a great experience.
Yeah, no, that's great feedback and great. You're both doing plugs for SCORE. We do not we did not get paid by SCORE, but this is great because this is excellent because it's another resource people can tap into. Let me ask this question, which came up in the chat, which is both of you clearly have a customer base. So how did you go about building your clientele? How did you go about, getting a following? Tiera and then Nyana?
So I started from the ground up, completely just grassroots. Let me get my name out there. So I announced my product. So I created my website. That was part of the process we didn't talk about before. So I completely created that from scratch myself. And once I had it ready and figured out how I could actually accept sales, and had the product ready, I announced it on my personal Facebook page. That I had this new business and this website, and then I started sharing the business social media pages that I created on Facebook and Instagram, and then from there, it was just about just plugging. I had to do a lot of promotions on my personal page, and then slowly but surely I've started to build a following, and then that's pretty much how I've been promoting my business, really from the ground up by word of mouth.
Yeah, no, I mean, I eat crabs twice a week. So I'm going to promote. I mean, I think that there's so much there for both of you. Nyana, how about you? You have a following. We heard about you before we even got to meet you. So how did you go about building your clientele?
Yeah, so I think very similar to Tiera, also from the ground up. So I think what really was helpful was, first of all, having that encouragement from family and friends. So those were our very first supporters. So when we started, like they were able to not only support us, but they were able to share the word as well. So I would say like when you are starting, it's really great to plug into your current network and just share that you're launching a business, share that you have a product, and give people that information on how they can get the products, especially if you are having like a launch day or a launch party or something, like announce that, so people have something that they're looking forward to. And then from there, like you have to build momentum. Like friends and family, they're great, but like you can't only rely on them to support you, or else like it's not sustainable. So you need to make sure that you're getting in other customers as well. So word of mouth is super, super helpful, but so is also putting boots on the ground. And so for us, like what we've done is attended like a lot of different pop-up events in the area. And, that way people are able to like visibly see us and, get to interact with us, get to know more about us, our story, and our products. And really that's how people like actually get to know about us. And from there, it kind of momentum has builded. So like I said, word of mouth, like people are talking about us, but also being proactive and reaching out to influencers, and also a lot of media outlets as well to like make sure that we're promoting, and also because like we are going out there building our email list and making sure that we're keeping people up to date. So email is super important, but so is also posting on social media and keeping your website up to date as well.
Yeah, I love your point about pop-ups too, where people just get introduced to you. It's like a unique opportunity to meet the owner, the creator. And I was thinking when you were talking, I'm like, yeah, like my hair product. I use a hair product from a local source, and it's because I met her and I really like. Well, her product's amazing, but I also met her, so I feel like very tied to sourcing locally. That leads me to this next question, and Nan, I'm gonna start with you about your supply chain, because you mentioned it and someone mentioned it in the comments on Facebook, which is you talked about sourcing from Black-owned farms in the DMV and your supply chain. How did you go about building those relationships? And then Tiera, I'd love for you to talk about, you source every part of your product, you put it all together, you make it special, you make it special sauce. But how do you both create relationships with suppliers as a part of your business? So Nyana, first I'll start with you.
Yeah, so I think part of it is just kind of knowing who's in your current network, but part of it is also doing that research as well to find out like who's in your community, or at least who you can connect to. So for me, I already, because when I was an undergrad, I had an interest in agriculture and gardening. That is not what I studied, but in my outside time, like that's what my interests were. So while I was in undergrad, I was able to build connections with some of the local farmers in the region, and I continue to keep in contact with them even upon me graduating. So one of the farmers who like personally, like I have supported, she's in DC, she's really great. I actually used to purchase some CSA community supported agriculture, take part in her program that she had on a yearly basis. And when I started, I just, had a conversation with her and told her about my business and what I was planning to do. And she was super receptive to it. So she was, I would say, my first supplier. And then from there, in talking to her, I was able to connect with other farmers in the region as well. And it really takes some asking around. And a great way to do this, like if you're in the food industry and you want to work with a lot of local people in your region, is just show up to your farmers market and there are farmers there. So you can talk to them, and even if they're not able to work with you, they might know someone who can. So I would say just, see what's in your community and, ask around and talk. And some of the farmers that like I work with, like I might not have met them in person because a lot of this happened during COVID, but I was able to connect with them via phone and via email, and they have ways to like deliver things too. Although like a number of them that we work with, we've met in person, but some of them are located a little bit further on the Eastern Shore. So
Sure.
So like it does make it harder to like go there, but still like we develop that relationship and like we stay in communication. And so it's been great to like actually, talk with them and build that network. And the longer I'm doing this, the more, I find that people want to connect us with other people as well.
Yeah, no, you made some really great points. I mean, I didn't even think I went to the farmer's market Saturday and sourced all these things for a cooking thing I was doing. Yeah, so you have suppliers right at your fingertips if you're in the food industry. How about you, Tiera? How did you go about sort of developing the relationships with your suppliers?
That's actually still a focus area of mine, something that I'm definitely still working on. But one tip that I can give, and one thing that I have learned, is that if I'm able to have conversations with real people, it's helpful. So I mentioned the
Yeah.
bottles before. I had my first moment where I went to place an order and the bottles were out of stock, and I didn't really have a backup supplier at that time. And so, I got on the phone and like started making some phone calls, and the pricing was different. So I kind of talked to someone about, hey, you're a little price above. This is what I'm used to paying. This is what I'm looking for. And I was actually able to get a deal on something that's better suited my budget by picking up the phone and not just trying to do everything online where it's so transaction based. So I'm still working on it, but I will say, as much as similar to what Nyana says, as much as you can actually have conversations with people, it definitely pays off.
No, that's great. I mean, I think that nothing will replace being able to talk to people and interact with them and touch them, and especially if you can do that in your supply chain. And thankfully, both of you all are doing that locally, which means that, just the multiplier effect of your impact is so much greater. I'd love to pivot to this question, and this is the money question. And it comes every week, but it comes in different forms. But this week it's come in. It's going to be a recommendation. So they don't want to know what's in your bank account. You're giving them advice. How should entrepreneurs approach finances and pricing for their business? So one, how did you all both think about building capital, and any suggestions you have for that? But also, I know how much both of your products cost. So like, how did you come to the price point? How did you think about pricing and pricing for growth? So Tiera, Nyana, how did you do that?
So I would say for me, first of all, as an entrepreneur, you have to make the decision from the beginning how you want to fund your business. Everyone, I'm sure, has heard the phrase, it takes money to make money, and that's absolutely true. And that money could come from you, it could come from investors, it could come from the bank, but it's got to come from somewhere. So I sort of, first of all, had to make that decision of, where am I going to get this pool of money to start with? And then once that's made, you have to figure out how much does it actually cost to make your product. And so I do my pricing on a per bottle basis. I think through how much does it, when I take into account, everything that goes into the actual process of making the sauce, what's my cost per bottle, and that helped me determine sort of kind of what I can charge for per bottle, and then kind of what kind of profit I'm making to ensure that you have a profitable product or service. So that's kind of been my approach. There's also, you can also have to kind of check with the market and think through, what are people willing to pay? Are you charging too much? Not enough? And you'll get that feedback sometimes without asking. It could be good or bad. Some people might say, hey, I would have paid $2 more for this, and some people might say, hey, that's a little too steep for me. So it's definitely a learning process, but you definitely have to think through what makes business sense. And I would say that's the hard part, because there's so many things out here that you want to buy and purchase to help your business or maybe make your life easier. But then I have to think, what's the return on this? If I pay the extra money to get this customized, let's say shipping boxes, am I really getting a return? And sometimes those returns are hard to calculate, and you just kind of have to make a judgment call, or maybe through trial and error.
I love how you said it. You mean you got to have money to make money, and have to, and no one's ever put it like you have to decide where that money's going to come from. Like it's coming from somewhere. Beautifully stated. Nana, how about you? How did you think about approach to financing, and then also approach pricing?
Yeah, so for us, honestly, this has been a learning process, and like we're still learning when it comes to pricing as well. So when we started out, definitely calculating how much does it cost to produce all of our products, like that is very essential. But in addition to the cost of producing those products, you also want to think about the other costs of business as well and factor that into your products, including things like promotion and things like rent and transportation and shipping and all of that. I think early on when we started, we didn't really factor shipping into our product, but we learned pretty quickly that we do, especially when shipping a little bit further away. So we have been adjusting our prices since, and I think especially in the last 2 years or so since COVID hit, and a lot of businesses have, shifted to doing a lot of e-commerce, and we have, since we launched, like always been online. So we've always had that ability to ship. But things picked up a lot, especially when June 2020 hit, and there was a lot of interest in Black-owned businesses. Like that is when we realized, oh wait, we are not charging enough when you factor in shipping. So we had to raise our prices. And even this year, like we had to raise our prices even more when you factor in inflation and the fact that our cost of goods are going up. So it's a constant process where you're constantly adjusting, but like Tiera said, the market will also let you know if what you're charging is too expensive or if it's too cheap. Part of that too is also knowing who your customers are, because there are going to be, people who are, willing to pay a little bit more as well when it comes to certain things. And you have to know like who your target market is and what it is that you as a business owner are willing to do, because a lot of work is going into the product as well. And you just have to know if it's worth it or not at the price that you're selling it for.
Yeah, no, you're so right. And I love how you broke down like all these different component parts, because both of you clearly love what you do. So sometimes when you love what you do, you can do it for free, because that's what we do. When we like something, we do it for free. And we do whatever aspect brings us joy. We would pay somebody to do that, so we do it for free. But for you all, I think the great advice you're giving people is to really price out all those elements and figure out how does that build into the product pricing. This question came, Nyana, around you're mentioning tapping into influencers to support promotion. And someone commented that both of you mentioned the significance of design. What other marketing considerations do you both have to make for your business, or how did you even make that marketing consideration? You have a team, like whole little squad behind you that's like telling you how to market. How do you position yourself for marketing and promotion?
So I will go first. I will say when it comes to the business, it really is my mom and I. So what, like I said, has been really helpful is working with influencers. And so, as a small business, is able to reach out to different influencers. And like when you do that, like you want to be very clear when it comes to what you're asking them for. And oftentimes you can have them, you can exchange products with them. Some also charge for their services. But oftentimes, like in working with them, like they can have really nice photographs and create that for you. If you're not able to photograph for yourself, I will say, like, in me doing this, I also learned a lot about food photography. So was able to do that as well. But if you're not able to do the work yourself, like, find a way to build relationships with other people so that, they can, help to make things easier on your end. And, sometimes it's about starting that conversation and, just meeting with like-minded people who really are passionate about your product, or who you think would be passionate about your product, and having them try it out. And if they like it, they're oftentimes willing to help you. But for me, in addition to working with influencers, learning things like food photography and social media and how to do that promotion, also blogging as well. SEO is also, which is search engine optimization, is also really helpful. For people who are hopping online and, searching for your products. That helps to draw people in. And in addition to all of those online strategies coming offline, when we go to pop-ups, we make sure to have a sign up so people can sign up to get our emails. And we also have, with the funds that we've been getting in, reinvested in our business. And so we have been able to get better banners and just improve our pop-up display so that we are more visible. And we found that the more and more we become visible, the more and more people are willing to stop by and check us out. So it takes some investment, but if you don't have the money or the time, just build your network and see how you can find other ways to just, promote yourself.
Hmm. I agree. I mean, there's so many people who want to use their talents to help a business. We had an entrepreneur last week talk about, how could, we'll get to the Oprah question when Jackie confirms that Miss Winfrey is on. But when we get to that question, it really is a question of like, how can you help someone? And someone said, if you're a photographer, could you do photographs for my business? If you're a web designer, could you help, just contribute in the way that you have your talent to really saying, if you grow plants, could you help us put plants in the business? So really different things. Tiera, how about you? How do you promote, and how do you think about promotion and marketing for your business?
I would definitely second what Nyana said about food photography and learning about that. I mean, it's a whole other thing in and of itself. Just because you know how to take a picture doesn't mean you know how to photograph food. And there's a whole art behind it. Because when you're in the food business, your food needs to look good. No one can taste it. It needs to feed the eyes. So that's definitely something that you have to pay. I pay a meticulous just level to detail one in my food photography. But I would say beyond that, there is, and this is probably the boring stuff, but there is an analytical side to marketing as well. So all of the
Mhm.
platforms will tell you what posts are getting the most engagement from your audience. And if you're not really into numbers, it can be the boring stuff, but you can get a lot of tips from that. And you can say, is it my reels? Is it the music? Is it the pictures? Is it holidays? Like what kind of are my followers really into? So that's kind of the thing that I pay attention to. And I definitely had to get some help on just getting my Instagram up and running. I knew how to do a basic post, and that was just about it. So don't be afraid to ask for help or source help if that's what you need to do.
Yeah, and I can tell you from experience, like my mentee that's, well, 12, she's amazing at, like, she knows how to do reels better than I think anybody else. So yeah, you can really tap into your network. I love what you just said. Let me get this question just come in before we get to our Oprah question, which is what what is your recipe process like? Do you sample to customers? And let me just tell you, we have a couple of samplers. I can get you samplers anytime you need to, but do you sample products to customers before deciding on a product? What's your recipe process like? Tiera, how about you? And then Nyana.
I didn't, I think in a I when I created my product, I used all kind of personal samplers, but you have to be careful with that because you don't want it, you want to make sure you're not getting people who will just tell you what they think you want to hear. You want people who are
Yeah.
going to be honest about it. I did do that. And then I also gave out, at this point, I had already had my product together, but at my very first market pop-up, I gave free samples. And so whenever I'm in person at markets, I allow my customers to taste the sauce. And I use pretzels to dip because, I don't have crabs at the markets. But I was able to get feedback from that. So thankfully, the feedback on my current recipe has been great. And I've just gotten some feedback on some like new flavors or other items moving forward. So, but you definitely want to get someone else to try your product, just making sure that it's someone who will actually be honest with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you don't want, everybody loves the sauce and then like, it's not that good.
Right.
But yeah, no, the honest feedback. Nana, how about you? What's your recipe process like? And do
Yeah.
you let customers sample the product?
So for the recipe making, that really is like on my mom. So just as far as how we divided up the business, like since there's two of us, like I handle a lot of the operations, marketing stuff, and she does a lot of the recipe development and testing. I will say for my mom, like she has been making a lot of the flavors that we sell for decades, decades, and decades. So at the point when we launched, like recipe testing didn't really need to happen because she had this stuff down pat.
Sure.
So we just worked off of recipes that we've always been using. I will say recipe testing is like important if you're launching something very new, and a lot of people haven't had it. But at the point that we were launching, like, we had been having a lot of feedback from a lot of family and friends, and like, we have very honest family and friends, and if it didn't taste good, like, they would let us know. But at that point, just launching our product, like, we also just knew we had a very phenomenal product as well. So just as far as when we do create new products, like, it is the like flavors that we are very familiar with. Now, when we go out there to our events, like, a lot of people, like, when we do try our products, feedback is always good. And people will make requests. Like, what we found is, especially because we're Caribbean, they'll be like, do you have so and so? Or do you have this and that? Or do you offer X, Y, and Z? Like, we'll get a lot of that. And so, like, it gets us to thinking, is that something that we should offer? And for us, like, we do want to stay very true to our mission of it being bold Caribbean flavors. So, if we decide to offer new products, it's products that, like, we are very knowledgeable about, and that we do have experience making. Otherwise, for the future, if it's not something in our wheelhouse, we'll, see how we can, do some more research, and maybe consider working with others who might have that expertise.
Excellent, excellent. No, I appreciate the amount of research that both of you put into the end product, which tastes good for all of us. So I'm going to ask this question. They remarked upon that Nyana, your business name is a homage to your grandmother's memory. Tiera, the name of the company, what was the inspiration for the name of your business?
Yorktown Spice is the name of my company, and it's named after the street I grew up on,
Oh, okay.
which was also grandma's house for me too.
Oh, wow, the grandma
Yes,
collection. Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. Let me get this question, and we have confirmed that Miss Winfrey is watching. She watches every week, so it's a good time for her to come on in. And the question we pose when she watches is, what can those of us who could be huge investors, but those of us who are just consumers, all of us could be consumers. What can we do to ensure that businesses like yours exist, thrive, multiply within our communities? Are there things that we can be doing to make that happen? Tiera, I'll start with you, and then Nyana.
I try to support businesses who are like mine, and being an entrepreneur, being a small business owner, being a Black woman, it really makes you see things differently. I mean, so like, I'm in a shop, for example, with other local makers. My product it's called Makers of Maryland. And there are a couple of candle makers. I can't go into to Bath and Body Works anymore and look at it the same way. Yeah. So, I mean, one thing that you have to do is just support others as well. And so, I try to support others who are doing what I'm doing and on the grind like I am, and we have to support one another. And then not being afraid to share your story so that people understand who you are and what it takes to do your business, and understand that, yes, and I make my batches in small batches. And like Nyana said, it's her and her mom. I mean, we're the team, and just not being afraid to say that, and then us having to be prepared to go out and support one another.
No, I love it. I love it. And you're so right. You're so right. Sharing your story. And you don't go into stores the same when you, after you get to be in proximity, you're like, I could get that locally. I could get that from, so-and-so. So yeah, no, I appreciate what you just said. Nyana, what do you have to say, Miss Winfrey?
I pretty much echo everything that Tiera said, and it really is about supporting locally. I'm a huge proponent of supporting locally as well. Like, when I do shopping, I shop in my farmer's market. I try to support other small businesses who are near me. But it's so important that we support each other and that we really be intentional about where we buy our products. And so for us, in addition to building those partnerships, like we also try to share our story as much as possible so that people understand why it is that we also support our local farmers and why we're doing that. It's so that we can build our community and make it stronger and support a smaller, local, greener economy, and reinvest back into our community. That's really what we're doing. So we're hoping that we can grow and build together and just create a better community.
I love it. I love it. 2 questions before we close out. I think I have time. What advice would you give yourself? Just go back in time, not that far, about starting your business. Tiera, what's like one piece of advice you would give yourself? Go back, I give you a time machine, and go back in time and talk to yourself.
I would have done it sooner, and I wouldn't have had the fear that I had, like back when I was in business school over 10 years ago, I had an opportunity to do a business internship, and I could have chosen this idea, but I guess I didn't really think about it, and I didn't really have the vision at that point. But if you have the idea, even if you start with just the vision and a plan, maybe you're not starting it in the first year, but you're making those steps towards it. I would have started to take those steps sooner. And I think about where I would be now had I done that. And I basically laughed at my own dream. Now in life, I don't do that anymore. But back then, that's what I did.
No, I love it. So many entrepreneurs come on and say, the best thing I would have done was start sooner. It is shared amongst so many folks. Nyana, what about you? What's the piece of advice you would give to yourself?
I just want to echo what was just said. Really don't let fear hold you back. So for us, like we started with the encouragement of family and friends, but they've been encouraging us for years and years and years. And finally, we decided to take that step about a year after my grandmother passed away, because we were like, what is a way that we could cement her legacy? And that really was the impetus for us finally getting started. And so in doing this business, like we have been trying to keep that in mind, but even in the very beginning of this operating, we let a lot of fear like dictate our prices. And now we're doing, what we need to do to grow and, not, stop it, because we want to grow bigger and we want to do better. So we are certainly learning and we are becoming more creative.
I love it. I love it. And you're right. Like both of you, it's evident, like fear is never the friend. It is a constant, persistent enemy that, most of us give too much credit to. Let me ask this question. Your best days are ahead of you. It is clear. We're going to claim that for both of you. But what has been your greatest achievement as a business owner thus far? Tiera, what's been the thing that you say, I really feel really proud of this moment?
I'll be honest, I was really proud the moment I could look at a bottle and had my packaged product. I mean, that to me was a huge accomplishment. Fast forward to today, and I started the business just last year, so I'm still learning. But fast forward to today, right now I'm currently in three shops, and so I'm very, thank you. I'm very like vision oriented. Like I'm always thinking about goal setting, and I really need to stop and just appreciate the accomplishments that I've had so far. And, I said, if for some reason this business ended today, I would be proud of everything I've accomplished so far. And we have to really pat ourselves on the back along the way.
Yeah, no, beautiful. What 3 stores? I'm going to give you a chance to do that.
The Makers of Maryland is a pop-up shop that lasts 6 months a year. That's in White Marsh, Maryland on the Avenue.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the Baltimore's Visitor Center downtown at the Inner Harbor. And Natasha's Brittle which is a cafe and candy store on Harford Road in Baltimore.
We've had Natasha on here, so I know all those locations. Oh, that's so great. That is really great. Nyana, what about you? What's been your greatest accomplishment thus far?
Yeah, I will say for both my mom and myself, like what we've been really proud of is being able to connect with customers from all over the place. I think we were really astounded, like when we got our first order from Alaska, it was like, whoa. And I know from my mom, and she says this all the time, but she's like, coming to this country, because we're both from Trinidad and Tobago originally. She was like, coming to this country, she was like, I never knew that I can make a product that a lot of people would, have a demand for. And now it's reaching all these people nationwide. So it's been phenomenal, just being able to connect with customers from all over, but also having different people reach out to us and being featured in different outlets. Media outlets as well. So that's been extremely exciting for us, just, seeing, how far we can go.
No, I'm so proud of both of you. I can say honestly, it has been such a pleasure to get to interview you both on Entrepreneurship Matters, and just to see both of you thriving and to know that your best days are ahead of you. And I got you on the uptake. So now I can get you while I can still get you on the phone. Tell everybody the .coms, the @ how can they get in contact with you? How can they purchase from you? Tiera, rattle them off for us. YorktownSpice.com.
Yorktown Spice, that's YorktownSpice.com. That's the website. And on Instagram at Yorktown_spice. And we also have a Facebook page. I do have a contact us button on the website, and I do see those emails that come through if anyone wanted to send an email or a direct message on Instagram or Facebook.
Excellent. Nyana, how can we get in contact with you?
So you can reach us at CamelaskKitchen.com. That is CAMELLAS kitchen.com. And that is also our handle on Instagram as well. And you will reach us on Facebook at Camela's Kitchen US. If you go on our website, our email and phone number is on there, so you can easily reach out to us via email or text or call us. We are very responsive when you do. But yeah, that's how you can find us.
Excellent. Thank you, Tiera. Thank you, Nyana. I really appreciate you both so much. Everyone, we're going to come back next week. We're going to be all about apparel. You're going to get to hear from 2 apparel companies from our community. You do not want to miss. Follow us on JH Connects on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Email us feedback, jhconnects@jhu.edu. Thank you to our partners, Johns Hopkins University, Johns Hopkins Health System, Hopkins Local, the Mayor's Office of Small Minority Women-Owned Business, Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses, as well as Bloomberg Philanthropies. Thank you both. Thank you, everyone, for watching.